Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Shadowed City podcast. I am your host, Larry, and this is The Shadows Within. So I got shows to go over, but I want to confirm I will be going over the recent GW Fight Club Unprotected episodes later tonight or tomorrow, and the recent show today of ASW tonight or tomorrow when I do that. So I just want to let you guys know that these are past shows. I need to catch up. And we are going to start with GW Fight Club, the 4th of July Bloodfest. There was a parking lot brawl between Erica RP versus Roxy, with Erica RP walking away victorious. Tyler Jones versus Jaquil, with Jaquil walking out victorious. Gator Croc versus OG Bishop Freeman, with Gator Croc walking out victorious. Johnny versus Inkslinger, with Inkslinger walking away victorious, and all three of those matches were cage matches. Just want to confirm that. Then there was a bloody five-way. Caleb Hopkins versus El Padrino, Savage Vega versus Jacob Evans. Jacob Evans versus J Money versus Oconee, with J Money walking out victorious. Queen of New York Championship, Sasha Jones versus Kyora Moon versus Miss Gator Croc, with Kyora Moon walking out the new champion. Fight Club KO Women's Championship KO match. Hikari Noah versus the champion Haley Ramone, with Haley Ramone retaining, and that was in an underground. King of the Cage Championship in the King of the Cage match. King RP versus Khan versus the Mecha Street King, with the Mecha Street King walking out victorious. And in the main event for the Fight Club US Championship, special guest referee Muffin Top John. Lazarus Hyde versus the champion Chiba, with Lazarus Hyde walking out the new champion. ASW Dimebag Dan versus Damian Briggs, with Damian Briggs walking out victorious. The next ASW show, Dynamite Daisy versus Lindsay, with Lindsay walking away victorious. Crazy Fox versus Rachel Blade, with Crazy Fox walking out victorious. Miko Nakatoshi versus Josie Marie Jane versus Mina Shamrock, with Miko Nakatoshi walking out victorious. Four-way elimination, Cyborg Jackie versus Lindsay versus Amaya Bryant versus Juicy Badass, with Amaya Bryant walking out victorious. 2 out of 3 cell, Angelina Angelo versus Kashama Red, with Angelina Angelo walking out victorious. Erica RP versus Isabella Steele, with Isabella Steele walking away victorious. 6-way, Ms. D versus Haley Ramone versus Angel Bryant versus Tina Rose versus Eve Steele versus Jessie Justice, with Ms. D walking out victorious in that main event. And for the next ASW show, it was a one-on-one match between OG Bishop Freeman and King RP, with OG Bishop Freeman walking away victorious. Now for TXT Imperium. 2 out of 3, Dimebag Dan versus Damian Briggs, with Dimebag Dan walking out victorious. 4-way Extreme Rules, Granddaddy Handsome versus Jaquil versus Swole Dinero versus Noah Butler, with Jaquil walking away victorious. 3-way elimination, Brittany Sparks versus Erica RP versus Danielle Barber, with Erica RP walking out victorious. 2 out of 3, A-Dot versus Judah Kane, with A-Dot walking away victorious. 2 out of 3 Extreme Rules, Tyler Jones versus Midway Boy, with Midway Boy walking out victorious. Nikita Sakamoto versus Cyborg Jackie, with Cyborg Jackie walking out victorious. Extreme Rules, the Ghost J Jim versus Nagasaki versus Chico, with Nagasaki walking out victorious. 2 out of 3, Cali Rage versus Taylor Griffin, with Cali Rage walking out victorious. 2 out of 3, Cold Steel versus Jay Prince, with Cold Steel walking away victorious in the main event. Now for All-Star Pro. All-Star Pro Grindhouse Season 4, Episode 9, Trevor Fry versus Bishop Brodus, with Bishop Brodus walking away victorious. Jackie Harper versus Rockstar Glow, with Rockstar Glow walking away victorious. OG Bishop Freeman versus Perry Hale, with OG Bishop Freeman walking away victorious. Venom Lee versus Travell Daniel, with Travell Daniel walking away victorious. Taryn Williams versus Emma Rose, with Emma Rose walking away victorious. Ultimo versus Granddaddy Handsome versus Mean Mike Shields, with Ultimo walking away victorious. Rob Life versus Blackjack, with Rob Life walking away victorious. Grindhouse Championship El Jefa versus the champion HBIC Nisha, with HBIC Nisha retaining the gold. Grindhouse Championship Crimson versus Chris Legend, the champion, with Chris Legend retaining. That was the main event, by the way. All-Star Pro Pile Driver Season 4, Episode 13, J-Rock versus Rockstar Triz, with Rockstar Triz walking out victorious. Selena Blaze versus Brick Graves, with Brick Graves walking away victorious. AJ Woods versus Jay Monster, with AJ Woods walking away victorious. Adrian Danger versus Rob Anderson, with Rob Anderson walking away victorious. Jake King versus Terrible Tito, with Terrible Tito walking away victorious. Jay Jin versus Nitro Cruz, with Jay Jin walking away victorious. Cold Steel versus Shinjo, with Shinjo walking away victorious. KCK versus Reagan Anderson and No Holds Barred, with Reagan Anderson walking out victorious. Sean Smith versus Adam Matthews, with Adam Matthews walking away victorious. All-Star Pro Unlimited Grit and Grind, Granddaddy Handsome versus Kando Dragon, with Kando Dragon walking away victorious. Women's Tag Team Championships Instant Lunch versus Dangerous Alliance, with the Dangerous Alliance walking out victorious. Nagasaki versus OG Bishop Freeman, with Nagasaki walking out victorious. Jimmy Kane versus Venom Lee, with Jimmy Kane walking out victorious. Grindhouse Championship Sylvia Knight versus HBIC Nisha, with HBIC Nisha retaining the gold. Television Championship Fatal 4-Way, Alex Knight versus Rob Life versus the Ghost J Jin versus champion Frank Ortiz. Welcome Nick Connors, wrestling referee. And that ended in a draw. Travell Daniel versus Buster Anderson, with Buster Anderson walking out victorious. Underground Championship Akane versus Lil Devil in a falls count anywhere, where Lil Devil walked out victorious. Liberty Championship Rockstar Scarlett versus the champion Sonya Ortiz, with Sonya Ortiz retaining the gold. Grindhouse Championship Crimson versus the champion Chris Legend in a steel cage, where Chris Legend retained the gold in that main event. Welcome, Brian Bam Bam. Welcome. Hope you are well. All-Star Pro Havoc Season 4, Episode 15, Kabuki Dragon versus Turtle Harrington, with Turtle Harrington walking out victorious. Rockstar Cali versus Baby Bone Crusher, with BBC walking out victorious. Baby Bone Crusher, BBC, you guys get it. Big Bear Bison versus Jaquil, with Jaquil walking away victorious. The Savage John Robb versus Mason Payne, with John Robb walking out victorious. Jesse Harper versus Damian Briggs, with Damian Briggs walking out victorious. Television Championship Rob Life versus the champion Frank Ortiz, with Frank Ortiz retaining the gold. Jay Smoke versus AJ Albright, with Jay Smoke walking out victorious. Champion versus champion Kira versus Christine St. James, with Kira walking out victorious. And in the main event, the Red Reapers versus Locos Terribles, with Locos Terribles walking out victorious. Now for TKO 25 to Life, the last championship show of 25. The Scepter of Chaos Championship, Jasmine versus the champion Cassandra M. Demoise, with Cassandra M. Demoise retaining the gold. TKO Ultimate Intercontinental Championship, Aaron James versus Tony Tornado for the title. He's the champion, with Tony Tornado retaining the gold. Zodiac Intercontinental Championship, Evelyn Winters versus Alexa Morales versus the champion Kaiva Justice, with Kaiva Justice retaining the gold. No Holds Barred Iron Man Multiversal Infinite Championship, Wolfie versus the champion Big Rig, with Wolfie walking out the new champion. Elimination Fatal 4-Way Next One Up Championship, Rob Z versus BPW versus Chin Pao versus the champion Durag Ortiz, with Durag Ortiz retaining the gold. Elysian Guardians Championship, Janice Tomahawk and Victoria Williams versus Danielle Demoise and Laura Little to champions, with Janice Tomahawk and Victoria Williams walking out the new champions. Falls Count Anywhere Dominion of Ruins Championship, JC King versus the champion Lewis West, with JC King walking out the new champion. Harmonious Dualism Championship ships, Quinn J. Stone and Blackfire versus the champions Luther Cross and Viper, with Luther Cross and Viper walking out the new champions. In a scrap trap, which is their version of a steel cage, Scarlet Trials Championship, Haven Callahan versus the champion Anomaly, with Anomaly retaining the gold. Karmatic Balance Championships, KC King and Jackson Silver versus the champions Tony Tornado and Big Rig, with Tony Tornado and Big Rig retaining the gold. No Holds Barred Nexus Up Balance Championship, Lockjaw versus the champion Susie, with Lockjaw walking out the new champion. TLC Women's Duality Legion Championship, Zero Cross versus Vextra, with Vextra walking out the new champion. And in the main event, special guest referee Carter Justice for the Men's Duality Legion Championship. Razor versus Buster Anderson versus Katie, with Buster walking out the champion. Now I am going to tag the owner of EWS, Rogues Gallery 5, Episode 5. Kyle Burton versus Curtis Stevens, with Kyle Burton walking out victorious. Onyx Callahan versus James Mallard, with Onyx Callahan walking out victorious. Johnny Exodus versus Talos Piper, with Talos Piper walking out victorious. Little Des Moines Dynasty versus Jaquil and Jack Jackson, with Jaquil and Jack Jackson walking out victorious. Tommy Gunn versus one half of the $1 Billion Icons, with Tommy Gunn walking out victorious. The 707 Bad Boy versus KC Kane versus Luther Cross, with KC Kane walking out victorious. Carter Justice versus Marshall Thompson. Carter Justice defending the title against Marshall Thompson, the EWS World TV Championship, where Carter Justice retained the gold. Jack Rose versus X, with Jack Rose walking out victorious. Callie Hex Dynasty versus Katie and Mondo Keefe, with Callie Hex Dynasty walking out victorious. EWF Lioness Episode 5. Lucy Kane versus Violet Zero, with Haven Callahan, with Lucy Kane walking out victorious. Queen of Malice versus Banshee, with Banshee walking out victorious. Jasmine versus Carly Prime, with Jasmine walking out victorious. Susie versus Laura Little, with Laura Little walking out victorious. Marino and LJ versus the Sisters of Destruction, with the Sisters of Destruction walking out victorious. EWF Women's World Championship, Starlight versus the champion Devi Chen, with Starlight walking out the new champion. Haven Callahan, with Violet Zero versus Case Des Moines, the champion for the Spitfire Championship, with Haven Callahan walking out the new champion. And in the main event, Luna Duskern versus Starlight in an Inferno match, where Starlight walked out victorious. Now for NCPW. Beatdown, Carnage versus Bobo the Clown, with Carnage walking out victorious. Daughters of Decay versus RFL and Taryn Williams, with Daughters of Decay walking out victorious. Jack Graves versus Koa Gage, with Jack Graves walking out victorious. Rusty Steele versus Sean Smith versus Lewis West, with Rusty Steele walking out victorious. The Tank versus Almighty Ace, with Almighty Ace walking out victorious. Raven Grimes versus Taylor Griffin, with Taylor Griffin walking out victorious. John Robb versus Ghost Edwards, with Ghost Edwards walking out victorious. Blade versus Feck, with Feck walking out victorious. Insidious versus Craig Mack, with Insidious walking out victorious. NCPW Carnage. Chris Legend versus CJ Frost, with Chris Legend walking out victorious. Daughters of Decay, versus the Jen and Taylor Griffin, with Jen and Taylor Griffin walking out victorious. Cold Steel versus Ace Cannon versus Duke Main, with Cold Steel walking out victorious. Brick Graves versus Bailey Cruz, with Brick Graves walking out victorious. The Royal Geniuses for the King family, it in no contest, I guess. You have to go back and watch so you can understand. But yeah. Now for GPW WWM Sanction. If I can. There we are. Baleska Ball versus Wendy Rogue, with Baleska Ball walking out victorious. Lady Basita versus Jeannie Jaw, with Lady Basita walking out victorious. Lex Platinum versus Don Harrison, with Lex Platinum walking out victorious. GCW Continental Championship and the NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship, champion versus champion Mike Howard versus Ace Cannon, where Mike Howard retained his gold but walked out with a new title. GPW Women's World Tag Team Championships Tornado Tag, Wendy Rogue and Jinx LaFay versus Countess Cyclone and Britt Monet, where Wendy Rogue and Jinx LaFay walked out the champions. GCW Intercontinental Championship, Yoko Sakoa versus the champion Bobo the Clown, with Yoko Sakoa walking out the new champion. WWM X Division Championship, Carnage versus the champion Aku, where Aku retained the gold. WWM Legends Championship 3-way elimination, the Dog Rob Anderson versus the champion Jack Graves versus Outlaw, with Rob Anderson walking out the new champion. And in the main event, NWA National Championship in a no-way out match, Koa Gage versus Blade, where Blade walked out victorious in that main event. Now for the GPW NWA Great American Bash. Also, speaking of, there will be a Fall Brawl show brought to you by NWA's general manager. Stay tuned for that on September 26th. Stay tuned for that, y'all. And now, NWA Stampede Championship 6-Women Gauntlet Eliminator. Jinx LaFay versus La Flambe Azul. If I said that wrong, please let me know. Versus Sonya Ortiz versus Casey Skull versus Tiffany Harrison versus Sylvia Knight, with Jinx LaFay walking out victorious. The Big One Championship 10-man KO Gauntlet Eliminator. Jersey versus Alexander Galloway versus Big Al versus Jay Williams versus Trey Nolan versus Michael Link McIntyre versus Ari Vigor versus Big Lou versus Risa Destroyer versus Big Time, with Trey Nolan walking out the champion. GPW Women's IC Championship Ambulance match. Jennifer Jade versus the champion Akira, where Akira retained the gold. WWM Next Gen Championship Elimination Chamber. Pitbull Dex Michaels versus Shinjo versus Devin Deuce versus Suzuki Cho versus Akane versus champion Nels Wade, with Suzuki Cho walking out the new champion. GCW North American Championship 5-Way TLC. Tim Nightshade versus Buster Anderson versus Mason Payne versus Iceman versus Dad the Bod Martin, with Mason Payne walking out victorious. GPW Women's World Championship. Britt Monet versus the champion Chanel Baltimore, where Britt Monet walked out the new champion. And in the main event, GPW Undisputed Heavyweight Championship under the One Rules. Jack Graves versus the champion Ranger Zero, with Jack Graves walking out the new champion in the main event. Damn. Now, for the last show I shall go over at the moment. SCW Swagger, Episode 1. Keith Hunt and the Voice of Violence versus Nels Wade in Rome, where Nels Wade and Rome walked out victorious. Ivy Lowe versus Jaquil, with Jaquil walking out victorious. Erica Kane versus Baby Bone Crusher, where Baby Bone Crusher walked out victorious. Jack Graves versus AJ Woods, with AJ Woods walking out victorious. Nico Dollars versus Chase Goldman, with Chase Goldman walking out victorious. Ifeanyi Balogun versus CJ Frost, with Balogun walked out victorious. I don't even know if I said that first name right. I hope I said the last name right as well. SCW Swagger, Episode 2. Rob Anderson versus Jack Graves, with Jack Graves walking out victorious. Nels Wade versus Big Fix-It, with Nels Wade walking out victorious. Kyle Truth and Marcus Justice versus XD Max and TD Max, with XD Max and TD Max walking away victorious. Ms. D versus Britt Monet, with Britt Monet walking out victorious. Tommy Taylor versus Tyson Storm, with Tyson Storm walking out victorious. Blade versus Sean Smith, with Blade walking out victorious. Buster Anderson versus Damian Briggs, with Damian Briggs walking out victorious. Last man standing, MEG Muerte El Guapo versus John Robb, with John Robb walking out victorious. And in the main event, a triple threat Texas death match between Akane, Frank Ortiz, and Carnage, where Carnage walked out victorious. This Sunday, I will be interviewing Ranger Rogue, so stay tuned for that, y'all. And these were the shows I had to go over after. I might do a show later on tonight. If not tonight, it will be tomorrow morning or sometime in that day to go over the recent shows of ASW and GW. But in the meantime, I do hope everybody has a great day. Good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever y'all may be. Peace out.